So welcome to ISIS Public Forum today. Before we start our conversations, let me invite Dr. Pakorn Seripakor to deliver a welcome remark. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Political Science at Chulalongkorn University. Please, Dean.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's seminar titled A Paradigm Shift in Japan's Security Policy in the Indo-Pacific. This topic could not be more timely as we witness a critical transformation in Japan's approach to regional security, driven by both shifting geopolitical dynamics and a new leadership in Tokyo. Under the leadership of Japan's new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, we are observing a significant trajectory of Japan's foreign and security policies. Traditionally known for its cautious and defensive stance, Japan is increasingly adopting a more active role in the Indo-Pacific. This is not just a response to changes in regional security dynamics, but also reflects Japan's evolving self-perception as a key player in maintaining peace and stability in one of the world's most strategically important regions. With our panelists, we will discuss key aspects of Japan's security paradigm shift, including its increasingly engagement with multilateral security partnerships, its expanded defense capabilities, and its active engagement not only within US-led alliance system, but also in pertinent security issues in the region. The discussions we have today are essential to understanding how Japan, through these changes, aim to contribute to the shaping of a more stable and secure Indo-Pacific order. This seminar will serve as an invaluable platform for engaging with some of the most pressing security issues facing not only Japan, but the entire region. Importantly, we are honored today to have Dr. Umezawa Akima, Minister at the Japanese Embassy in Thailand, deliver the keynote address at this pivotal moment for Japan's foreign and security policy. As Dr. Akima is concluding his tenure in Thailand this month, we are especially grateful for his leadership in fostering academic collaboration on behalf of the embassy. His support has been invaluable to our faculty in ISIS Thailand, and this seminar also serves as an acknowledgement of his strong contributions to our endeavors. I sincerely hope the embassy will continue this academic engagement with us following the footsteps of Dr. Akima. Thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to the insightful exchanges and perspectives that will emerge from our discussions. Welcome once again, and I hope you enjoy the seminar. Welcome to the faculty. Thank you so much.
We can bring our students there again next semester. So Dr. Akima will be leaving soon in a couple of weeks, and we would like to fetch him, to speak to us and, just tap onto his insightful, experience and thought about foreign security policy of Japan. Right. This event is very timely, as the dean suggested. Japan has got a new prime minister, as he said, Mr. Ishiba, on the 1st of October. So his foreign policy address at the parliament a few days ago, if you have seen, was very interesting, right? The important message we've got is the reconfirmations of Japan's active foreign policy and security policy in the regions. Japan today is not Japan in the post-war anymore, right? Japan, or a few decades ago, if you follow Japan's foreign policy for quite some time. So it's more active, it's more self-confident. So we can see what Japan's, and following the next elections, the end of this month, there might be some continuity and change, right, in the new administrations in Japan within the global context of power competitions and another elections, next month in the United States. As we have Dr. and as we have Dr. Akima here, we would want to hear, what he thinks about it, right? What are the key factors determining Japan's shift in foreign policy directions in the regions? We also have another two panelists to help discuss and delve into various pertinent issues. First, Dr. Thitinan Pongsudhirak, Professor of IR Department at our faculty and senior research fellows at ISIS Thailand, is expert in international and Asian international politics and Thai foreign policy. The second one, Dr. Teewin Suputtikul, assistant professor and the head of the IR department at our faculty. His expertise is on Japan's foreign policy and security policies and regional politics in Northeast Asia. So we'll let Dr. Akima deliver his lecture for about 20 to 25 minutes, right? Yeah. So, and then we'll follow by our, discussion by the two panelists. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul, and very good morning. It's my great honor to be here to take a floor of the renowned ISIS forum. First, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Dean Dr. Prapon and also Professor Thitinan and Professor Paul and Professor Teewin provided me this fabulous opportunity just before my leaving. A couple of years ago, when I talked with Professor Thitinan, he said that he doesn't like the panelist speaking style with slide. Definitely, I share somehow, but I reply that when panelists use the slide of the photograph, the table, or some key phrase, I think that it might be the guiding compass for audience. So I try to insist on my style. But probably Professor Thitinan allowed me to do that. First, I want to show you that the East Asia map. The Thailand or Bangkok is center of this map. And the first I want to say that Japan, or Japanese archipelago. Japan has a maritime border with 7 countries, namely United States, Russia, China, North Korea, South Korea, and the Philippines, and Taiwan. Taiwan is a region. And among these 7 borders, yes, there are 2 flashpoints, North Korea and the Cross Strait or Taiwan Strait, and 3 military superpowers, Russia, China, and the United States, and 4 nuclear states, US, Russia, China. Whatever we say that the North Korea might be categorized the nuclear state. So geopolitically or geostrategically, the Japanese archipelago is located very risk-sensitive and even though the security dangerous area. Probably many of you know that Thai also has 7 borders. I'm not sure you can say the 7 countries. The land is Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Malaysia, and the maritime border, Indonesia, Vietnam, and India. Now, of course, India is a nuclear state, but I think not so many people can draw the line, the maritime border between India and Thailand. So you can imagine, you can understand. First is the geopolitically or geostrategically. Japan is located very sensitive, risky place or risky region. And this is not the geographic point. But actually, every month, we have experienced the violation or threat of our territory. Just last month, September, we experienced North Korean missile launching at the Japanese EEZ, and Russia and China invade into Japanese territorial space, territorial air. And also last month, the Chinese military, under the name of the Coast Guard, enter into Japanese contiguous zone. So every year we have faced such a violation of territorial issue. And This is the average frequency of last 3 or 4 years of the violation and threat. In China case, maritime violation, almost every day, Chinese military vessel enter into Japanese contiguous zone or territorial sea. And every day, Japanese fighter jet have to make an air scramble to make a warning to China's military airplane, because the Chinese military airplane always every day enter into Japanese ISIS, the area of defense identification zone, and missile several per year. And North Korean case, every month they allegedly or they launch the missile every month. And Russian case is just the short, every maritime threat, maritime violation every quarter, and air scramble almost every 2 days. And Russia also challenged to launch a missile to Japanese EZ, the several per year. So not only the geographical future or geopolitical future, actual threat existing in Japanese sea and air. So what should Japan do? This is one of the Japanese response to this kind of the security environment or risk of security environment. That is 2 years ago, Japan renewed and updated new security strategy. But definitely Japan does not do the arms race and does not participate in competition of the defense equipment. Instead, Japanese pillar of the new security strategy is promoting universal values such as democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. And also, Japan proactively contribute to peace and order. These are the pillar under the new security strategy. I also would like to elaborate the background of this new security strategy more academically. I want to use the very classical style of the international relations theory to pick up the three theory: realism, pluralism, and globalism. Then nowadays, the scholar developed 6 or 7 international the theory. But to make a story simple, I want to use this traditional, conventional international relations theory. The first is realism. Since the Westphalia Agreement in 17th century, the state versus state is a key component of the international relation. And what is the state power, or what is the diplomatic power? The power is composed of the economic production and the military strength. So economy and the military as a key source of the power of state. And always the state is compete against state. That is a realism theory. But nowadays, not only the area, our region in region in East Asia, and all the globe, we can see the change of the power balance. So state versus state relation already changed from the status quo. This is based on geopolitical competition. This is the current stage and the realism theory. And the next theory, pluralism, is the theory, the non-state actor. The previously, what is pluralism is the international organization is a key component of international relation. So state gathering a key unit interaction for the international or forming an international relation. So for example, the end or the warm Cold War era, or 20 years later of the starting Cold War, there's a lot of the regional organization. ASEAN is one example. And around the world, Africa has African Union, and the EU, European EU, and also South America has Mercosur. So such a international organization makes formal international relations. That is a traditional style of pluralism. But nowadays, the situation changed. So as a non-state actor, terrorism, the religion and the proliferation or the immigration or ethnic matter are key actor, but the non-state status. That kind of the non-state actor or player based on these kind of non-state actor arising on the bandwagon to international relations. For example, the Ukraine issue, definitely the non-state actor is a key background. And also, for example, the Ukraine-Gaza issue, definitely that is a terrorism, religion, ethnic, and immigration issue. So nowadays, the pluralism theory changed to the much more new the style. And finally, the point of globalism, the theory, this is beyond the border. The original theory say that the actor having an influence on the globe. Yeah, for example, GAFA, the company GAFA is one of the examples. They have the influence on all the areas of the world. But nowadays we have the very different dimension. For example, the global south is kind of the production globalism, because globalism made a wide gathering, and such kind of wide gathering have made the new kind of the grouping. And the groups might be the production from the global. And that kind of the globalism make a new dimension of security, such as food security, energy security, and economic security. This is a non-traditional security, but definitely, so for example, when we have the Ukraine issue, in North Africa, there is a food security issue. And also Ukraine issue made the energy security issue in Southeast Asia. So omni-dimensional security is spread out over the globe. That is a new phenomenon of the globalization, globalism theory. So currently the background of our international relations so complicated, and everything intertwined. So to cope with this kind of controversial intertwined environment, how Japan is to cope to make a security and also security strategy. So this is the answer of Japanese government. Another new security strategy, Japan listed the 6 approach. The first one is the international order. So diplomacy through diplomacy that makes the international order is one was first approach, and also to ensure the safety and security. Japan also have to enhance defense architecture, and how to do that is alliance and like-minded countries cooperation. And just I said in previous slide, to tackle the omni-dimensional security and maritime outer space, blah, 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 blah. And the energy security and food security, economic security is also one of the omni-dimensional security issue. And definitely to make a safe and safety, cooperation is most important. And this cooperation have to be through the multilateralism. And a 6th point and approach, FOIP, free and open Indo-Pacific. I think that the approach from number 1 to 5, you can imagine what are they. So I want to elaborate the 6th point, free and open Indo-Pacific, on this the opportunity. But this is a project-oriented cooperation. Actually, the Japanese government established FOIP in 2016 when Japan organized Tokyo International Conference of African Development in 2016. And the key concept of this vision of FOIP is to expand the success story of the economic development in Southeast Asia to Africa. So Southeast Asia, the success story of the Southeast Asia to Africa. That's why FOIP is not Asia Pacific. Southeast Asia to Africa, that's why Indo-Pacific. And the key goal is to neither division nor confrontation. So under the project-oriented cooperation theory, the FOIP make and also expand the project to promote rule of law and multi-layered connectivity, such as the knowledge connectivity, human connectivity, or digital connectivity, and so on. And also the ensuring the public domain. The public domain is the maritime, the space, or environment. So under the FOIP, we promote the project to ensure that the ocean, air, and environment. And interestingly, we list up one of the point, Indo-Pacific Way. What is the Indo-Pacific Way? The last year, the former Prime Minister Kishida clarified what is Indo-Pacific Way. They're rather simple. The people or country have to respect each other. And we recognize diverse value, diverse culture, and diverse history. And everything, especially cooperation, have to expand, have to implement through dialogue. And we should realistic and practical way. And I believe some of you are so familiar with this 4 points because whenever we see the ASEAN statement, whatever we say, the leader statement, or foreign minister statement, chairman statement, that these 4 points scattered or sprinkled in these ASEAN statement. The why ASEAN statement are so similar to the Indo-Pacific approach, which is one of the Japanese Indo-Pacific way, because we have 50 years collaboration between ASEAN and Japan, sharing our axis and our vision. The last year, ASEAN and Japan celebrate the 50th anniversary of ASEAN-Japan Friendship Cooperation. And the leader met in Tokyo from the ASEAN, all the ASEAN countries and Japan. And the leader issues a statement subtitled Trusted Partners. And this time I want to say that this trust is not a slogan. But when it comes to the relation between ASEAN and Japan or East Asia, for Japan, the trust is reality. Because one of the examples shows, this is a famous ASEAN survey conducted by Singapore-based think tank, ISIS, ASEAN Research Center. And this is one of the results of in the Southeast Asia report. Every year, ISIS, ASEAN Research Center, conduct the ASEAN survey, and they're having the question, which country is most trusted, and which country is least trusted? The last year result, Japan scored almost 60% ASEAN people trust Japan, and only less than 20% ASEAN people untrusted. This is Japanese score. For your example, I want to show the China's case. The Chinese case is the percentage of trusted only 24.8%, and distrust is 50%. Almost upside down the Japanese case. So Japan has a trust or acquired trust from ASEAN. And probably you may understand that trust is not a tangible object. Definitely trust is intangible. And usually, or definitely trust is existing in our mind or in our heart. And how Japan built that trust. One of the good example I can say that 50 years ago, Japan established our anchor diplomacy or anchor policy on ASEAN. This is called as heart-to-heart doctrine or Fukuda doctrine. This doctrine, Fukuda doctrine, is composed of three pillars. The first is that Japan will never be military power, never military power. Next is a heart-to-heart relation. The third point is that Japan cooperate with ASEAN on equal footing. So such kind of the heart-to-heart relation, the policy on equal footing have built up the trust. And this time, I want to say that trust can be the soft power or hidden weapon of Japanese diplomacy. The earlier this slide, I say that realism, state versus state. And the powers of the state is composed of the military power and economic power. Definitely Japan is not the military superpower. And when it comes to economy, the last year Japan sank down to the world's fourth largest economy. So nowadays Japan cannot be recognized the economic superpower. But Japan has or built up the trust as a hidden weapon of the soft power. So this soft power can hike up, can raise the Japanese status in the similar level what superpower United States, China has exercised in the region. So this is very uniqueness. And this uniqueness of Japanese diplomacy using a trust as a hidden weapon of the superpower will be definitely be recognized Thai people and the ASEAN people. This is my final slide. I'm sorry, this is only the text sentence-based slide. But probably Professor Thitinan allowed me to use this slide because this is his article. So he wrote this article at the time of the ASEAN-Japan 50th anniversary of the friendship relation. Last year, December. He wrote for many in the region, Japan represent a third way alternative for organizing and promoting regional peace and order, neither dominated by China nor the U.S. Yes, this is one of the wise man view or very clear view. What is Japan? And this time I want to conclude the 5 decades for Japan, the 5 decades accumulation of the heart-to-heart relation on equal footing. Japan has unconsciously built up the trust in the region and in the globe as a hidden weapon of the soft power in diplomacy. And using the soft power, Japan has and will proactively contribute the peace and order in the Indo-Pacific security environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akima. Perhaps that last point could teach the Thai government how to build soft power, what they should focus on rather than selling khao mamo or anything else. Anyway, let our next panelist, Ajahn Thitinan, perhaps you can elaborate or discuss other points that arise from Dr. Akima. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Umezawa, for your clear, succinct, and I think realistic presentation about Japan's role, Japan's approaches, and Japan's dilemmas. Also, it's a pleasure for me to be speaking on a panel with you as a keynote speaker because You've come to many of our seminars at ISIS, and normally you'll be sitting in the audience, but today it's great to see you give the talk yourself. It's our honor. Japan's, let me return. I mean, you've given a rich presentation. Let me talk about 2 or 3 issues. I think, Japan, you mentioned now, is the 4th largest economy in the world in terms of GDP size. It's diminishing. Its relative power, both geoeconomic power and geopolitical power, geopolitical standing, geoeconomic heft, has receded, has diminished, but it's still enormous, still substantial. So the dilemma, and we've seen a lot of movements, and Prime Minister Ishiba is new. I think that we still remember Prime Minister Abe a lot, and Prime Minister Kishida, some continuity. So I think first, the domestic situation in Japan, that I think that we should not overlook how long Ishiba will be around. And there was the time when Japan had a lot of changes at the top, a lot of fluid shuffling of prime ministers and different ministers. So domestic political continuity is very important for Japan foreign policy posture and projection. And you have the very dynamic politics in the LDP and all of that. Even the last the election within the LDP to come up with Prime Minister Ishiba was very close, very close. So we watched that from afar and concern and hope that the domestic political stability, domestic political continuity, Japan is stable, unlike Thailand, but the continuity is key. And I think that Prime Minister Abe, the reason he was able to project such a horizon, such an active, assertive role for Japan was because he had the continuity, he had the domestic politics under control under the LDP, and he himself within the LDP. So that's one factor that I think has always been a bit of a dilemma within Japan, and from outside, a little bit of concern for us outside about Japan's continuity. Second, I want to talk about the dilemmas that you have outlined. What kind of country is Japan these days? What kind of country is Japan? And what kind of country that should Japan be? What kind of country is Japan? And Japan is torn in many different directions. The US alliance is indispensable. Japan needs the nuclear deterrence, and I think that there has been some work in the national security strategy to build up your own defense and to upgrade the deterrence, extended deterrence. So the US is sacrosanct. Japan cannot do without the US. But then Japan also has been pulled into the US orbit of the Quad, and there's now the new Quad. There's a trilateral with Japan, Korea, China. There's also a trilateral with Japan, Korea, and US. The new Quad, including Philippines. The previous Quad, including India, Australia, US, Japan. There's been discussion about setting up a NATO liaison office in Japan. And I think Japan is in the OECD. Japan has very close working relationships, very close alliances with NATO countries. So Japan's a Western Asian country. You talked about values, human rights, democracy, and these are values that Japan champions and values that we very much welcome, I think, in Southeast Asia, most of us. You mentioned also the ISIS survey. Consistently, annually, Japan scores the highest. So the region likes Japan. So my question, and I think it's Japan's dilemma, is how Asian is Japan? And how Western is Japan? It's, on the one hand, Japan very Asian with the values and a lot of soft power. And I always think that if you ask a blind survey of anyone, and you give a free trip, free holiday, first class holiday, and you ask anyone, like, where you want to go, first choice, I think it's Japan. Maybe it could be Korea a little bit, maybe UK a little bit, but most likely not the first choice will not be China. So Japan has really a soft spot, not just soft power, but soft spot in many Asian visions, outlooks, preferences. So that's my second point about what kind of country is Japan, And my first point when I started about Japan, engage, committed to multi-aligned in different alliances. And whether Japan is Western or Asian, to what extent. So my third point would be, well, what kind of country then should Japan aspire to be, right? The country that is Japan today, we see it very mixed, very fluid. I always wonder about Japan's own autonomy. At home, we want to see Japan continuity. Outside, we want to see Japan's autonomy. So my view would be that Japan, and as I wrote, I think my view has remained the same, that the region meaning Southeast Asia, ASEAN, would like to not be shackled and forced into this binary of the U.S.-China conflict, competition, confrontation, which is worsening. And I think the region, Southeast Asia, certainly Thailand, always looking for diversification, looking for a third way. And that third way, we thought for a while that maybe when Prime Minister Abe was around, he tried to promote that third way through democratic values, with India, with Australia, for example. And we haven't seen that kind of vision and leadership and assertion since then. But I do think that Japan can still play that middle power, upper middle power, third way leadership while still maintaining its alliances. With the US, it's paramount and indispensable. But the US, I think Prime Minister Abe understood very well that the US has a reliability problem. You never know if the next president is going to do this or that, especially if it's a President Trump. Prime Minister Abe saw Trump right after the election when Trump won, because I think he understood that the US is key and you have to get on the Trump good side because Trump is very personal. The upper middle power, third way leadership, still maintaining the alliances, the trilaterals on both sides, China, US, the Quad and the new Quad, the OECD, NATO, that one has been controversial. OECD is not, but the NATO office, and to what extent Japan will host this, the NATO extension. This, I think, is a dilemma, which goes back to my foremost dilemma about Japan, about what country is it? What kind of country is it? It's a great power. It's not a superpower, but it's more than just a middle power. It's a US ally, but it has its own, to what extent does it have its own autonomy? For regional leadership in the Mekong region, in Southeast Asia. So just to wrap up, my own view still is that among the dilemmas, I think the key dilemma for us is Japan, what kind of Japan that Japan would like to see for itself, and what kind of Japan that we would like to see this country to be. And I think in my view, and it's reflected in the Southeast Asia survey time and again, that is the most popular country, most trusted country, as a country with a lot of soft power, but more important than soft power, people have a soft spot for Japan. And that, I think, can be leveraged for a upper middle power leadership still within the alliances that you have, that Japan has, but providing enough of a third way in a moving mix of a third way for Southeast Asia, for Thailand. And don't forget, the values you mentioned, they have different emphases. But we very much in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, very much value those values, the democracy, human rights, fundamental freedoms. And that can also be the leverage that Japan can use to lead the region. So I'm calling for upper middle power, Japan leadership as a third way, limited third way alternative for the region, especially for Southeast Asia and Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajahn Thitinan. And you reminds me of actually besides the trilateral between U.S., Japan, and South Korea. Recent months in May 2024, right? There's another trilateral between Japan, South Korea, and China. And I think this is a very critical point where the middle power in Asia overlaps, have the overlapping forum between two contending powers, and that could be a role that Japan or even South Korea could play to stabilize the regional securities, and that probably one of the points that I want to just remind. Next, Dr. Teewin, you have any?
First of all, thank you, ISIS, for inviting me for this seminar. And also thank you for a very insightful and mind-provoking presentation from Dr. Umezawa and Professor Thitinan. Actually, I met with Dr. Umezawa many times during the course of past 2 years. And even though our talk mostly about Thai politics, but I gained a lot of insight about Japan's foreign policy from Dr. Umezawa. So thank you for that. And I feel very honored to be here today. For my part, I would like to share my opinion, my general observation about the change in Japan's security posture, and also how this have the implications to the current international situation. First of all, I believe that as everyone can see, we have witnessing a clear break with the past regarding Japan's engagement in the international security field. This change is very significant and drastic. That the theme of today's seminar, the title, A Paradigm Shift, that Professor Pongphisoot has come up with, is very apt and suitable. So I'm going to talk about this paradigm shift. I regard what happens nowadays in Japan as the second post-war paradigm shift, especially when we talk about the ideology of pacifism in Japan. If we look at Japan's security roles in the 1980s and 1990s, which I analyzed in my doctoral dissertation 20 years ago, it is remarkable that Japan has changed from the country suffering from trauma because other countries thought of it and criticized it as inactive, passive, and only using checkbook diplomacy or sending money and money again to help manage international crisis, like during the Persian Gulf crisis and Persian Gulf War in 1991 and 1992. But nowadays, instead of waiting and seeing or hiding behind other big powers, Japan has become very active and even proactive to deal with the new security challenges, especially in this region or Indo-Pacific region. Although this change has occurred gradually and slowly during the course of more than 30 years, it has accelerated very fast in the past 10 years. If we trace back this change, we can see that Japan's Self-Defense Force, or JSDF, has become very active on the global stage since the early 1990s, as it started to participate in peacekeeping operation, or UNPKO, and has been sent to many regions in the world since then. That marked a great shift in the role of SDF as well as Japan's defense principle and posture. Japan then could say that it had modified the narrow definition of pacifism, the so-called one country or one nation pacifism, Ikkoku Heiwa Shugi, that concerned mainly its own national and peace and security, to become a country that contributes more to help ensure the global stability and security. The ideology or paradigm has shifted toward another kind of pacifism, that is an international-oriented pacifism or kokusaiteki heiwa shugi, focusing on the UN Center peacekeeping activity. As I say that the transforming process has accelerated in the recent decade, especially in the 2010s, what we can regard as the paradigm shift was the change in the interpretation of the Article 9 of the Peace Constitution, especially in 2014 and 2015, that marked Japan's acceptance of the right of collective self-defense or Shudanteki Jiekeng no Koshiyonin. This concept has become the key instrument to enhance alliance mechanism with the US after the long years of refusing to recognize this right in Japan's defense doctrine. It was considered outside, this concept used to be considered as outside the scope of minimum necessary level of defense or Hityo Saicho Kendo no Bo-e, and thus unconstitutional. But the reinterpretation of Article 9 to eventually embrace the right of collective self-defense showed that the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe put importance on the US-Japan alliance system as the defense policy instrument to deal with the change in security context in Asia. Japan had the rationale and justification for changing the stance from denial to acceptance of Shudan Tekijiekeng. We can say that the second paradigm shift in Japan's security doctrine occurred as a response to the international context, especially the change in power configuration in Asia. As we all know, and as emphasized by Dr. Umezawa in the presentation, the rise of China, along with its assertiveness in its territorial claims and the volatile behavior of North Korea in trying to make progress in the missile and nuclear program, although it is undeniable that Japan has the incentive to become active in the geostrategic field because it has the security threat right near its neighbor. But since Japan also perceives itself as interdependent state that relies or what in Dr. Umezawa was intertwined with global affairs, with global free market, freedom of navigation, stable and open rule-based international order, it cannot act as a bystander, seeing the status quo order in Asia and the world threatened or disrupted by the use of force of any state. The challenging security context that Japan had to deal with since the early 2010s was not only the new security threats from China and DPRK, but the problem also came from the strategic ambiguity of the US East Asia policy. Even though President Barack Obama at that time announced the policy of pivot to Asia, but the concrete steps to do so was unclear. Apart from the TPP that the US eventually withdrew later, there was no progress along that course of pivot to Asia. So under the Abe administration, Japan stepped up its effort to prove to the US its enthusiasm and signal to the potential opponents in the region that both Japan and US had the willingness and commitment to strengthen the bilateral alliance system. This resulted in the enhancement of the deterrence mechanism that can help deter or prevent any unfavorable moves by any states to use force to change the rule-based order in Asia. Another shift that occurred during the 2010s was the relaxation of rules concerning defense equipment transfer to other countries. This move has become the basis for the recent development during the Kishida administration, enabling Japan to sell defense equipment to other countries, both to Japan's allies and to other countries that Japan wants to help build defense capacity. For example, like some countries in Southeast Asia, the Philippines and Vietnam. The recent agreement with the US about defense industrial cooperation and the initiative to make Japan a hub in Asia for repairment and maintenance of US military aircraft and vessels was also the new development that helps increase deterrence mechanism against disruptive forces in the region. Another important move worth mentioning was the declaration since the Suga administration that Japan, together with the US, considers the peace and stability in Taiwan Strait as important to security of the region and global security as a whole. The late Prime Minister Abe also emphasized that China's use of force against Taiwan could activate Japan-US alliance system to help protect Taiwan. The way that Japan saw Taiwan as important to its own national defense and tried to send consistent messages that it is a close friend of Taiwan can be considered that Japan is using its capability to ensure Taiwan's security, or the so-called extended deterrence. That is showing its commitment and determination not only to use force to protect itself, but to protect other countries in order to prevent it from being attacked. The doctrine of extended deterrence used to be exercised exclusively by US to protect its allies in Asia, but now Japan has adopted this position to help maintain status quo order in Asia. Under the Kishida administration, Japan also expands the security cooperation with other countries beyond the US, as Professor Thitinan has said. For example, the so-called mini-lateral frameworks like quadruple alliance with other middle power in Asia, and also the new Quad with the Philippines, and also trilateral alliance with US and South Korea. Japan also forged security ties beyond Asia, notably with European countries like Britain, France, and Germany, by emphasizing that the security in Asia and Europe are inseparable. This is to show Japan's unity with other Western countries in opposing the war in Ukraine and to prevent any attempt by any country to change the status quo by force in the future, especially in Indo-Pacific region. In conclusion, Japan has endorsed the new pacifism based on security preparation and deterrence. So the paradigm has shifted. As I said, this is the second time that Japan changed the paradigm or the security doctrine after World War II. From one country pacifism to international pacifism. That's the first time after the end of Cold War. And then the recent shift can be said that is the second shift from international pacifism to pacifism guaranteed by military strength. So I should say that it's remarkable that Japan could achieve this kind of change and the great change in security policy without any revision of the peace constitution. So this is a great shift that makes Japan move even closer to become a normal state. But this is debatable because as Dr. Umezawa emphasized that Japan will not be a military power in the region or in the world. And as Professor Thitinan posed the question to everyone that what kind of countries that Japan should be after this. So it's like Japan may face the dilemma or different approaches to deal with the situation here in Asia that marked by the US and China, like great power rivalries in the region. So that's my opinion on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teewin. We have probably a lot of issues here before we go to the second round, which I would trying to ask all of you to address the probably responses from regional states or including the great powers, how they view this shift in Japan's security policies and foreign policies in the Indo-Pacific, which is more like assertive, proactive, and how the US, EU, even South Korea or China or ASEAN country view this shift. But before we move to that big issues, Dr. Akima, do you have any responses to the addresses by?
Yes. First, thank you very much. The Professor Thitinan casting the word dilemma, what kind of the country Japan should be or will be, and Dr. Teewin explained the last 50 or 60 years Japanese development of security and the policy. And just to respond the question raised by Professor Thitinan by the argument of the TV. Definitely when we developed since 1960s, 70s, 80s, Japanese purpose or Japanese policy purpose is to be the economic superpower. Economy is the most important, prevail anything. But after the Cold War, definitely our policy on diplomacy was and has been drifting. Japan announced something, the value diplomacy, multilateralism, and also shifting the balance. There's many things, but actually Japan cannot consolidate or converge the domestic discussion. What kind of country Japan should be? That is the question. And nowadays, we can see something the consolidation. For example, this year, ASEAN leaders meeting has Asian zero emission leaders meeting. This is proposed by Japan. This is something new value to the region. And also, Dr. Teewin mentioned the TPP, and actually, as Trump decided that the U.S. withdraws the negotiation TPP, Prime Minister Abe ignited discussion under the name of the CPTPP. This is another value diplomacy or putting the value in the world. And also we can see today's security issues, for example, Ukraine issue. Our government always say that today's Ukraine is tomorrow the Asia. This is a kind of the view, but also this is something the value to casting the value to the Asia or Southeast Asia to consider what is the peace and what is the security and what is the order. So I think now that definitely we are now shifting the third era under the Teewin's argument and as the view of the Professor Thitinan's question, what kind of the country Japan will be. So now little bit consolidation, we can see the consolidation that is Japan putting something the value or something the subject or something challenge in the world as a middle size country.
I actually have one question regarding this shift. Do you think this shift is bipartisan or gain consensus within Japan's politics? I mean, like if you look at the U.S., right? I mean, it's a bipartisan consensus that China is a threat, and the United States should deter and contain China's rise. But this is like similar things happening in Japan politics and public.
Simply, Japan tried not to be the partisan. For example, that when we explain what is Japan or what is Japan's policy to Japan, China is a challenge to challenge to the world diplomacy. We have never seen the enemy or advertise or opposition. And when it comes to the United States, of course, legally this is an alliance, but always we see that we are partner, not such an alliance relation. So I think the question, the simple question to the poll you cast is not to try to partisan argument in our Japanese policy or domestic argument.
Anything to add from the two of you?
I just would like to add some of my observation about Japan's politics and about what you said about bipartisan in Japan's politics. I think because of the perhaps international requirement or the structural force that we can see that the security context in East Asia now is not is concernable and is uncertain. So I think many in Japan now, when we look at the poll, like opinion polls from general public, they seem to agree more with the LDP stance on security and defense policy. Even though maybe the public may not go so far as to revise the constitution, especially Article 9, but they seem to agree with the idea of, like, as I said, deterrence as a new type of pacifism that emerged in Japan. That means pacifism by using force or preparation for military attack in order to prevent or to make the opponents or the adversary side to think twice about their intention, like to use force or to attack or to change the status quo by force. So I think because of the international situation, it forced Japan to adopt the geopolitical logic. Like Dr. Umezawa said that maybe realist logic to deal with the international situation is the realistic approach to do so nowadays. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that this is a very stimulating, dynamic discussion. I really, many issues here. I think that picking up on Ajahn Teewin's presentation about pacifism, I think that post-war Japan has run its course, which means that I think now, moving forward, pacifism doesn't work for Japan's new security needs anymore. Now, this is a very difficult, more controversial kind of remark because 100 years ago, Japan was seen as a more aggressive, belligerent, and we're coming close to a 100-year cycle. And after the war, for decades, Japan benefited. The first Cold War and the Cold War, Japan benefited a lot because Cold War is going on in the world. Japan was developing emphasis on the economic development, on the keiretsu and all the developmental state, and Japan became prosperous and geo-economic power. And then Japan technology at that time was also paramount. Remember, all the electronics and in those days. So the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, Japan built a lot of geo-economic heft and appealed a lot of ODA in the region, in the Mekong region, in Southeast Asia, the Fukuda Doctrine and all of that, right? So, but now I think in the 21st century, the paradigm has really shifted. And Japan, unless it really moves along, it really stays with the curve and maybe ahead of the curve, it will fall behind. And when already you can see the EVs are outcompeting the ICEs. We have a big dilemma in Thailand about what do we do now with the auto industry. and the government is subsidizing the EVs, which I disagree with. But we still need the Japanese FDI here. The auto industry is 11% of our GDP. But for Japan, all the AI boom, the EVs, the cutting edge technology, the high tech, or the chips war and so on, Japan is marginalized. It's really between China and the US and the West. And the US now is rallying, mobilizing Western allies to keep China at bay, to undermine China's technological innovation, technological development. So this is why there's a sense that there's been a diminution, decline of Japan's prominence. It used to be a prominent role. So Japan is responding. I think the national security strategy is a response. The defense build-up, spending 2% of GDP on defense, that's responding. And the shift from the ODA, now the OSA, the Overseas Security Assistance, also is another response. But I think Japanese society, and they face a lot of domestic issues about aging, about the national debt, about the sluggish economy, low growth, and everything, and the lack of technological prowess that Japan used to have. Still advanced, but it's being outcompeted. So my point here would be that there has to be a concomitant, corresponding shift in the Japanese state, Japanese society, reaction and response to this new paradigm. It's the second Cold War. Japan will not have the same benefit as the first Cold War. And unless Japan becomes more assertive, and I dare say a little bit aggressive on technology, economic development, it will risk falling further behind and more diminished. And the other side of it is that countries in the region want Japan to be like that. They want Japan to be more assertive. They want Japan to be more proactive because of the soft power, the soft spot that we have. If all the countries, if China becomes aggressive, nobody likes it. Japan becomes a little bit more aggressive, I think no one will oppose it.
Do you agree with everyone's agree that Japan should be more proactive?
Yes, definitely.
If you access U.S. responses in recent years, or even the ROK or other regional states.
I see. Yeah. First is both Professor Thitinan and Dr. Teewin said that 100% correct, and both the prominent scholars use the word of pacifism. Definitely, this word is very negative trauma to Japanese government, to Japanese people. Previously, just Professor Thitinan said 70, 80, 90, Japan was okay to consider only Japanese economy. Development of own economies is enough. But nowadays, it's different, especially the key game changer, just the TV said, the Gulf War. That time is, in the case of the Gulf War, Japan did not send any troop, any military staff, any military equipment, just pay money. The time is after the Gulf War, the Kuwait government advertised the thanks paper in the, I think, Washington Post or the New York Times. The Kuwait government listed 130 countries, but the country name Japan was missing, omitted, because Japan did not send any troop. So pacifism is something trauma of Japanese government people, and the times we change the Japanese policy and Japanese of course some of the acts and the law. For example, the PK peacekeeping operation law was established after the Gulf War, and but in the meantime, we have also have dilemma that one country winner is not good. So leading the technology, the leading economy, or leading something is good for sometimes in terms of the economic production, the benefit, but always the top scored country, especially in economy, such country is attacked by any country. For example, just the Professor Titinan said that Japanese world number ODA error in 1990. That time there was a severe, huge OECD discussion under the name of the Development DAC, the Development Assistance Committee. The European country criticized so severely Japanese ODA system. So Japanese ODA have to have to change something or have to amend something. So I think this kind of trauma, pacifism, and the winner's theory of the international world have made something change with the Japanese policy. Of course, there's no clear answer, but still we are very hesitant to the Japan shared or Japan monopolized winner's position in the international community. Because nowadays, peace cannot be achieved one country. Ukraine issue, the Israel issue, or even the Myanmar issue. So without cooperation, we cannot achieve the peace. So we are omitted such a winner's monopolized theory. Instead of the cooperation is important. That's why I think that many people can see or have seen Japanese Japanese position or Japanese ranking is a bit getting down or rank down. But this is one of the cause of the lesson learned from the 1990 or 2000. Japan little to shift our policy. I think that might be an answer to the Professor Titinan TV's question.
Okay, but I think one country that might be suspicious of the Japanese assertive foreign policy could be China, right? I mean, I think after 2022 strategic security strategy that the Japanese issued a couple of years ago, I think Beijing responded quite, harshly, and they see that, or criticize that as the, contradictory positions of Japan, right? On the one hand, Japan has at least attempted to build some trust at the working level with Beijing. As I mentioned earlier, the trilateral meeting, continues and renewed in recent years, and the Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Kishida, meeting in APEC that could, mark a milestone of the, bilateral relations last year. So these, kind of send a message to Beijing that, perhaps Japan look at China quite in the practical way that China could contribute to Japan's stability, at least you or as a hedge against the uncertainties of the U.S. Foreign policies after Trump. If we think that Trump is going to become the prime minister, and then how to maintain these flexibilities and pragmatic in foreign policies. And on the other hand, right, we see these assertive or proactive foreign policy in Japan in the regions, informal or even certain sort of formal contact with the Taiwanese government. Recently, I think in August, when he was not the prime minister yet, Mr. Ishiba was visiting Taiwan, meeting with Lai Ching-te, right, during that time. So, and that sends kind of like a contradictory message to Beijing's, and the engagement with Taiwan in the long run could perhaps create more tensions, because Japan probably view that the possibilities of the Taiwan invasion could affect Okinawa and maritime territorial, and I think Japan, the Chinese also worried about Japan's involvement in the South China Sea as a link to justify Japan's security policy that would link with the East China Sea as well, Diaoyu, Senkaku Islands dispute, right? Those kind of issues that ram up to create these contradictions. And of course, Japan's engagement with the U.S. alliance system, or even like unilateral or multilateral, more cooperations with Philippines, and Dr. Teewin was mentioning, with Australia's and even with the UK, under the traditional hub and spoke. That like create environment where the perhaps Beijing leadership could look with suspicions. What do you think this is like gonna end up? I mean, three of you.
Yeah, thank you. Very the intellectually intelligent question. The first, what is China now? Previously, China is a one-party leaders country, but now the one leaders country. Even though China has the name of the Politburo, the 7 wise man, the highest consultation body. But now the member of the Politburo is always yes man to the one leader. And also previously, what is most important in China is to say the legitimacy of the Communist Party. But nowadays, the most important is to show up or to, much said, exaggerate the legitimacy of one man or one leader. So what happened in China, especially inside, the most important thing is maintain the consolidation of the party to respect one man or one leader. And in that system, the diplomacy is just an extension of domestic policy. And most easiest such policy, like diplomacy, is extension of the domestic policy, is to make an enemy outside China. Is the easiest way to consolidate domestic situation, domestic society and the domestic people's mind. So whatever happened, like the pandemic or flood or the earthquake or national disaster, to maintain the consolidation of the domestic society is the easiest way to make an enemy outside. And always Japan is a very good example, a very good object as an enemy to the domestic society. So this is we have to understand that kind of situation. So Japan should not to respond to every Chinese leader's policy or reaction. This is the first answer to the question cast by Paul. And instead, what should we do is, of course, currently the military power and economic power Japan cannot beat. And previously I said nowadays peace cannot be achieved one country. So cooperation is important. Just what you said, the Philippine issue. What is the Philippine issue is to expand or to make a legitimacy rule of law. In 2016, that is the name of the ISIS South China Sea Tribunal under the Law of the Sea Convention. Clearly, the Law of the Sea Tribunal said the Chinese claim in historical rights in South China Sea is no basis, no legal basis. So this is a rule of law. Why Japan cooperate or have cooperate with Philippines? We should extend or respect such kind of rule of law or justice. Otherwise, like just Paul said, Japanese adjacent sea, East China Sea, might be invaded by Chinese militant vessel easily. So the AUKUS is also, we can see that so far the AUKUS means to establish the nuclear submarine. But the purpose is to extend the rule of law under the maritime security. In that sense, that we can respect the AUKUS, the AUKUS movement. So answer to the question, question directly, that is to keep the legitimacy of the rule of law, Japan have to challenge or have to be, not the fight, but have to be having such a severe relation with China. This is, I think, what Japan have done in the past decade in terms of the China-Japan relation. Thank you very much.
Anyone want to add?
I agree with Dr. Umezawa about Chinese government incentive to create external threat or external enemy in order to consolidate national unity or try to legitimize the position of Communist Party to continue to rule China and deal with the challenge that the Communist Party of China now face. But what is important, and I think Japan need to be careful, is that this kind of discourse that make Japan the enemies of Chinese people may not only limited to domestic audience in China, but also I think what China is now doing is to wage what is called the public opinion warfare. And it's not only limited to the Chinese domestic politics, but also try to convince other countries, people in other countries that seem to have suspicion against the US role in Asia. And also Japan's role in the past. China may try to spread the discourse that you see that Japan is now trying to remilitarize. But as Dr. Umezawa tried to stress that actually Japan doesn't want to be a military power trying to dominate the region, something that happened in the past. But China may use this kind of development, to convince or to use as a public relations to make others think that you see that Japan is moving toward militarism, abandoning the idea of pacifism, and then endorse the pre-war militarism again. And many people, for example, perhaps in Thailand, who don't know much about Japan, don't know that Japan have this kind of peace constitution, may believe what China try to convey to them. So in this platform as public opinion warfare, like propaganda and using information operation, IO or something like this, Japan may have to, make counter argument about this. Like what Dr. Umezawa said today, that try to stress and emphasize the position of Japan, not to be a military power. And what Japan tried to do, I think when Japan talk about Asian NATO, Japan want to, in my opinion, Japan want to say that we will look or monitor China's role by resorting to multilateralism, not only by using Japan's military capability, but at the same time by saying NATO, it will make China unhappy. Because when we say NATO compared to the one in Europe, it occurred because it tried to balance against military threat, right? During the Cold War, which is the Soviet Union. So by use the term NATO, it means that Japan is trying to build a coalition against China. So maybe avoiding this term is better, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think what Japan tried to say, Japan want to say that we are talking about multilateral framework so that Japan will not be the one to, accumulate power to deal with China, but we have to deal it in the, to build an international institution to work together for peace and stability in Asia. So that's what I would like to say.
Just 2 quick points. I know the audience would want to have a say about military power and about the universal values that you brought up, you presented, Dr. Umezawa. So military power, I mean, Japan is a power, it's a military power. But then, what kind of military power is it? I think the National Security Strategy 2022 has laid out a new kind of military projection, military capability for Japan. Already we can see that spending 2% of GDP on defense will be a big difference. There's something analogous happening in Germany. Japan already has outfitted 2 naval vessels into aircraft carriers using F-35s, and then the defense force and SDF, and I think they have a lot of military exercises in the region. Japan's providing military capability, Coast Guard certainly to the Philippines. So even as a military power itself, it is more powerful. It will never be a nuclear power. That would be a big debate in Japan if that ever happens, but we don't see that coming. But yet you can see that short of being a nuclear power, you can still be a military power with sufficient deterrence. So I think on the military power side, Japan has become a bit more powerful, and it will become even more powerful still, short of being a nuclear power. And for the region meaning not China or not East Asia, but in Southeast Asia, I think this is not a bad thing. I think that it is not unwelcome because of the US-China conflict, confrontation, dominance. The second point I wanted to just react to is about the values, universal values. In Thailand, it's very important to have Asian voices for these values. When these values are espoused by the US, the Europeans, they can be alleged or portrayed as a lecturing, as a Western influence. But I think when Japan or South Korea or even Taiwan, to a lesser degree, for obvious reasons, champion these values, especially for what's happening in Thailand, in Thai politics, they're very much welcome. On the values debate, I think that China is doing a lot of media influences, the disinformation, a lot of cyber work, which I think I agree with Ajahn Teewin that has to be countered. And I think Japan is a bit behind on this one.
Okay, so we now have a lot of views, and I probably would open the floor for the audiences to Ambassador Kasem, please.
Kasem Pirom, fellow at ISIS, but a student of politics. And in that sense, thank you very much to the 3 doctors of philosophy for a very insightful presentation. Thank you very much. I learned a hell of a lot. I wrote an article for the Bangkok Post a few weeks ago titled "The Drifting Apart of Thailand and Japan." And in relation to that, my question to the 3 panelists. Because of the fact that Japan is moving more and more in the security direction, what would happen really to the ODA for the ASEAN community? That's the first question. Any future, or we have to go to the World Bank and the ADB and so on? Second, the fact that Japan is increasing its security relationship with at least 2 members of ASEAN community, namely the Philippines and to a lesser extent Vietnam. And one cannot exclude the contact between Japan to Indonesia and Malaysia in the near future. is Japan undermining ASEAN cohesion and ASEAN sort of a joint position on Southeast Asia as a zone of neutrality or non-alignment in that sense? Is Japan cautious at this point in time, or it can ignore all of this? There is an urgency to contain China as much and as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Excellency. That the key policy question about the Japanese government. Yeah, the first is the first question. You have used the word more and more security and the ODA size of ODA, not decrease but the ODA issue. The first budget issues as Japanese society has changed more diverse, have diversified more and more. The many new budget items arise, increasing the security, social security issue. So to cover the domestic issue, proportionally the size of the ODA little bit shrinking. This is definitely the statistically Japanese ODA size itself little bit shrink, but not drastically increase. And what is the principle of the ODA, offshore development assistance? And Thailand and the ASEAN country has already developed, already graduate the country which receives the offshore development assistance. That's why statistically, especially from viewpoint of the Thai people, the ASEAN people, Japanese ODA seem to be decreasing in providing this region. But considering the concept or principle of the ODA, we have to support development. That's why the currently the investment-related Japanese ODA and also just Professor Thitinan mentioned the OSA, offshore security assistance. Those two kinds of private mobilized assistance as well, and also the military, security-related assistance are increasing. And that is the current budgetary situation. And when it comes to the situation of the region and also global situation, definitely ASEAN and also Southeast Asia have faced the security problem. And to maintain and also extend the value issue, especially the rule of law, definitely Japanese assistance to ASEAN countries have to be focused on such kind of maintain the value. So that might be the answer to Your Excellency's first question. The second point is definitely the similar point, so I don't repeat. Thank you very much.
I would like to respond to Thantut. I think that you are perceptive for sure, Thantut, that there's been a drift in Thailand and Japan. But my first response is that this drift is not confined to Thailand, Japan. There's a drift in Thailand, US, Thailand, European countries. Thailand is adrift. That's first point. Second point, Thailand is adrift not because of the others, but because Thailand itself. And then third point, if Thailand and Japan is adrift, Thailand is adrift with other countries, and there are no other countries to get closer to, then no problem. But now there's Vietnam, you mentioned Ambassador Kasit. Indonesia, I think Japan under the new government and also under new government in Indonesia will be a lot closer on digital economy, infrastructure, and a lot of room. Japan, Indonesia, Japan, Vietnam, Japan, Philippines. And why? Well, these countries, they are ready partners. Thailand just not. So I blame Thailand for that. I know we have some students in the room. I always tell them, if there's no course correction, I mean, it's our country, but more yours than mine because you live longer. If that doesn't change, Thailand will just be adrift. Thailand is adrift. And there's no one else to blame but Thailand. I think the second point about the ODA, I want to get away from this thinking about the ODA. ODA, Myanmar can use ODA. I agree with Dr. Umezawa that, Thailand is an upper middle income country. It's a problem that it cannot make the leap beyond this, right? The middle income trap. ODA, Myanmar, maybe Laos. I think that we're looking for partnerships more than just ODA. However, I think on the soft power, on the exchanges, scholarships, visits and people to people, this is the new ODA. And Japan can really help a lot. And because people like Japan, it's very much welcome.
Any other questions? Can you introduce yourself as well?
Hello, my name is Christopher Woody. I'm an American journalist here in Bangkok. I had two questions about military relationships. Firstly, for Ambassador Umezawa, for many countries in Southeast Asia, the U.S. is still the military partner of choice, but we see China being more active, doing more exercises with Thailand and others like Singapore. I wanted to ask you, does Japan view China's expanding relationships as a source of concern? And if so, what's the appropriate response to that? And then Professor Thitinan and the other discussants, you talk about Thailand adrift in its foreign policy. Should we take that to mean that Thailand is focusing its resources on managing its relations with the US and China to the exclusion of looking for other partners like Japan? Or how does that dynamic work out in day-to-day foreign policy making? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. The first, simply I want to say that we are concerned the Chinese assertive action and influence onto Southeast Asia, definitely. For the Thailand, definitely Thailand bought or purchased the Chinese submarine, and also when we see the army, Thailand army, Thailand also bought equipment China. We have to closely monitor what happened or what will happen, the relation between China and Thailand in terms of military cooperation. Especially in current situation, when we see the Laos, in Mekong River, the Chinese patrol vessels have already operated. Chinese patrol vessels operate in the Mekong River in Laos territory. And when we look at the Cambodia Liam Navy port is constructed by China. And in Myanmar, North Myanmar, the ethnic group or it's three brotherhood ethnic group have already good or close cooperation with China. And South Myanmar, there is Chao Pyu Deep Airport renovated by Chinese money. So concerning the Thailand of course is considered well, but the countries in Thailand have already open or not open, but provide the Chinese military's the activity. So definitely we are concerned how Thai we're going, how Thai decide, definitely. Yes.
Over the last 2 decades, you can see a steady drift and distance between Thailand and its major friends. And I mentioned earlier that Thailand is to blame more than the others because its domestic situation is very much in turmoil or unstable and uncertain. It just doesn't have its act together. So it's very difficult when the domestic politics is like this to have foreign policy projection and posture, because all the other foreign partners, they will think, well, who's going to be the prime minister tomorrow, next month? How long will this government last? Will there be another military coup? Will there be more judicial interventions? When these questions are on the minds of foreign partners, Thailand loses out. Now, when Thailand is adrift like this, it's less adrift vis-a-vis China and more adrift with the others. The reason is because the ruling elites, and two reasons, that I can see, ruling elites would have more inclination to engage with a country like China without the universal values that Dr. Umezawa mentioned about human rights, democracy. And second, I think the Chinese system makes it very receptive to situations like Thailand. So if you have a usurped, subverted elections, a lot of countries will say that's not good. But China will say, no problem. And that's why I think the drift, when it's adrift from the rest, from the other powers, is less adrift with Beijing.
Any other questions? Please.
It's still morning. Good morning. My name is Yasser Hussain. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission at Embassy of Pakistan. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation and a thought-provoking discussion. I have two questions, one with my colleague Dr. Umezawa and other with Dr. Thitinan and Dr. Teewin. The first question, while in your presentation, while you were discussing, Japan's challenges, current challenges Japan is facing, and the 6 approaches which you mentioned to, negotiate these challenges, I noticed that among those 6 challenges, there wasn't anything about rapprochement with the adversaries Japan is facing currently. Let's say the 3, you mentioned the 4 countries. US is your ally, and the other 3, Russia, China, and North Korea, from where you have all your, troubles or problems and all that things which you come across on daily basis. But the thing which was missing was there was no mention of any rapprochement. All those 6 approaches were towards, tackling them with, different actions, but there was no mention of, no strand about rapprochement negotiations and settling down through pacific means. So is it a foregone conclusion that these challenges cannot be, settled through pacific means? To Dr. Teewin and Dr. Thitinan, there are 2 actors currently. One is a country, Japan. The other one is not a country but an organization, European Union, which enjoy wonderful, goodwill across the regions, across the countries, because of their, value-based foreign policies or value-based approach and development assistance, economic opportunities, and all that. But your insistence, and there is an insistence on the European Union as well, that they should have more assertive geopolitical role than only economic and value-based approach in their foreign policies. This is resonated around, wherever you go, even in Africa, even in the global south, everyone wants that they have an enhanced role. But given the experience of China and the United States, who are, being an important partner, having their own ambitions, the way they are behaving, what gives you that confidence that once Japan has an additional role or enhanced role of geopolitical, leaving its pacifist approach of just development cooperation, ODAs, and other cooperation, becomes a geopolitical actor, it would not behave like the United States or the China is behaving, or the Japan which you referred to before Second World War, the kind of Japan has its policy. What gives you confidence that Japan would continue to behave the way it is behaving today? Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, your first question, definitely your observation right. I didn't mention any specific measure or approach against the Russia, China, North Korea. Definitely, your observation right. I also have to say the security strategy and the bilateral diplomacy are a bit different. So when you look at our penetrate leading this security strategy, definitely the strategy mentioned the three countries: Russia, China, North Korea. Very briefly, in the case of the Russian, referring the Ukraine issue, the Russian invasion or aggression to Ukraine is definitely the violation of the UN Charter, especially in terms of the territorial integrity, and also the China's issue, China's case. But we have so many discussions according to some media differently, and even though we didn't use the word enemy, but we call China as a serious challenge, and the third one, North Korean issue, as North Korea breached so many times the UN Security Council resolution, so the security strategy called upon North Korea to comply with UN Security Council. So this is actually we have already mentioned, but at today's presentation I didn't show up. So thank you very much for your observation.
Dr. Teewin, Ajahn Thitinan, other.
Okay, I would like to respond to your question about whether we could be sure about Japan's behavior would not, go back to the pre-war one of militaristic Japan. So I think if we compare to the situation before, now China is very powerful compared to Japan, as Professor Thitinan said that Japan capability, especially economic one, is now declining. So it's difficult for Japan to project its power, abroad or become a dominant power in Asia, like it had done before. And the second thing is that now Japan depends on the security alliance with the U.S. So I think the U.S. play the game of, trying to maintain the status quo in Asia. So it would not be happy to see Japan become independent and decide for itself, like to use force to attack China first, or to change or to disrupt the situation here in Asia. And Japan try to stress that Japan would not be the military power again, as Dr. Umezawa said in his presentation. So also I think because of the peace constitution, I think domestic politics in Japan now still value pacifism. And the way that Japan change, or what I say paradigm shift, is the reactive one, not the one that can make Japan, turn into militarism like before. So I think it's quite assured. We can feel reassured about what Japan tried to do at the moment, and I don't think that we should be afraid of Japan, as will change its stance in terms of pacifism or militarism at the moment.
I have a two-pronged answer to your question. Very good question, by the way. And the first one is exactly what Ajahn Teewin just mentioned. If you look at the trajectory, now the belligerent power, the power that we have to deal with, handle, manage, is China, right? So I mean, if you look at the trajectory from 100 years ago, 120 years ago, after the Russo-Japanese War, then that trajectory was one of belligerence, and that eventually led to the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, and World War II. So the first answer is that China now is we have to address the China challenge. And then also the U.S. challenge. The U.S. will not allow, the U.S. is the nuclear power. Japan, in the end, is reliant on that U.S. nuclear security guarantee. Therefore, it's very difficult to see Japan becoming that kind of belligerent power again. And then the second answer is about the distinction, my answer to your question is about really the distinction between nature-nurture and also a mix and overlap of nature-nurture. So, you can make the case that China would say that they've never been belligerent in their history. But they seem belligerent to us now. So I think that Japan, with the deep pacifism for decades and decades, I think there's a new breed of Japanese now that are around. So therefore, I think nurture, in this case, has a lot more to do with it than nature. And the proof of another case of that would be China. If it's true that they've never been belligerent, right, so their nature should be benign, but the reality is not. So in this case, maybe they've been nurtured now to be more belligerent and not benign.
Thank you. Last questions, probably we can get it. Yes, please.
Hi. So good morning to the professors and the panelists. So Ajahn Thitinan has talked a lot about trust, and also Dr. Umezawa. So my question will be circling around that. So although Japan has fostered trust among Southeast Asian countries, which acts as a hidden soft power, as Dr. Umezawa said, to Japan to be able to secure the collaborations. However, China's increasing investment and influence in the regions also plays a significant role in determining public's opinions, as Dr. Thitinan said. For example, in Laos, there are tremendous investment in building roads and infrastructures, and even though Japan is still the top investors in the regions, however, I think there are a lot of public opinions or concerns around Japan's declining economics and investment in the region. So how can Japan ensure its trust will be secured, especially among citizens and policymakers in Southeast Asian countries, on the same level to ensure collaborations with Southeast Asian countries against China's assertiveness? And I also heard that Ajahn Thitinan mentioned about scholarships, but my question is scholarships and fellowship enough to secure trust among our citizens?
Yes, thank you. Very good question. The one example that this forum, actually just before my leaving, my friend Professor Thitinan Pongsudhirak organized this kind of fabulous opportunity. I think this is one of the consequence of the building up our trust and friendship. I recognize the trust cannot be achieved 1 year or 1 day. 50 or 5 decades of effort can build up or have built up the trust between Japan and ASEAN. So we do not do any specific thing, but they cooperate or make a good implement the project in the corporate manner with ASEAN country. Only that kind of cooperate or work hand in hand and heart-to-heart cooperation can build such kind of trust. Of course, China invests a lot. But when we look at the newspaper, every time the newspaper, the articles say the concern about the influx of the Chinese cheap products to the Thai market. And also infrastructure issue. Honestly speaking, there's some paper said that who uses the high-speed railway from the Vientiane to Bangkok? I think that many use the flight, much cheaper way. But even though Thailand government say that Thai will never receive any money from China, but their agreement that Thai receives technology. But what is important what is the difference between Japanese ODA and the Chinese such infrastructure project? Is Japanese ODA always based on the needs and also discussion with Thailand or ASEAN country, not led by politician. So such kind of the grassroots based cooperation exchange can make trust, not the government top-down policy. I think this is a result of the 50 years anniversary of the ASEAN-Japan relation last year. Thank you very much.
Okay, so probably now time's over. I would like to thank Dr. Umezawa Akima, for your active discussions and participations with ISIS Thailand, and this time, your keynote lecture. I believe everyone's, gained some, more understanding of the Japanese foreign policy and security policies in the regions. And last but not least, as he's leaving, please have a safe flight back to Japan. So thank you very much, and we'll have another forum next week. It's not on the ads yet, but follow ISIS website or Twitters. We'll put on that soon. It's about China and Southeast Asia. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.